Hello, my name's Sarah Hatherley, and I'd like to tell you a story about a little girl called me. I hope you enjoy The Turtle Who Lost Her Shell. Once there was a little girl who thought she was a turtle. It's not because she had a crazy name, something odd like Myrtle, and it's not like she was born that way, cold-blooded to the core, some prehistoric creature crawling madly across the floor. No, she chose to be a reptile around the age of 3. I'll tell you why, in good time, but first, just listen to me. She wasn't born some scrap of baby, squished between 2 big old shells. Imagine the terrible fright for a mum, giving birth to that. Hell's bells. Let's get this straight, right from the very start. She arrived on Earth a baby girl, and truth be told, quite smart. Which is why she didn't say too much, until she was a bit more grown. She watched and listened to all around, and certainly didn't moan. She heard more in those long silences, when no one said a word. Their thoughts went clanging around the room. Not to notice would be absurd. Some days she felt she was drowning in a soup of pain and grief. Don't worry, things get better soon. I'll try and keep this brief. But you need to understand what flowed throughout the house. Without these undercurrents, she might well have stayed a mouse. You see, it started as a trickle, then gradually emotions flowed. Soon the currents between her parents were lapping at her toes. Then one day, right out of the blue, a rugged storm blew up. Another kid might just remember it as the day that they grew up. The sea of silence broke its banks, and words began to hurtle. Finding safety under the laundry basket that day, I turned into a turtle. Oops, the truth is out. I've let it slip, but that's really quite okay. I was that little turtle girl, I'm not ashamed to say. Now tortoises, they live on land, and this was sink or swim, and coming from Australia, no one's heard of terrapin. So a turtle was the smartest choice, a brand new mobile home. I had everything I could ever need except a mobile phone. As the storm raged on all week, I think someone threw a plate, and though it was quite uncivilised, at least no one marched out the front gate. It felt good to be a turtle, all snug inside my shell, till Mum did the washing and swiped my home. You should have heard me yell. You see, a turtle and its shell are a bit like a finger and its nail. They're joined together and painful to part, like a puppy and its tail. I was quick to find a replacement though, even better than the first. If I hadn't found old rubbish bin lids, it's possible I'd have burst. Steel plates strapped fore and aft, just like the knights of old. I couldn't have been more protected with ye olde shields of shining gold. While it may have been slow going, trying to get around, at least I didn't have web feet with their funny scratching sound. No, this life that I'd chosen meant I no longer felt all fragile, but there was definitely a price to pay. You know, I used to be quite agile. I found it difficult to do some things, like run and skip and hop, and once I finally got going, it was almost impossible to stop. So I threw those lids back on the rubbish. I think it was late at night, and I leapt back into life next day, but it didn't feel quite right. You see, I really was a turtle now, with a big and tough old hide. I'd got so used to hiding under my armour, I was afraid to peek outside. What started as a harmless game to help me face a scary day had become a prison of a different sort when I couldn't get out to play. You're probably wondering what Mum and Dad thought of all this when they tucked me in bed each night and planted a fresh kiss. Well, I thought they hadn't noticed the change that had come over me. My little reptile ways were not always obvious to see. Till one day I heard my mother whisper into Dad's lapel, "You know, darling, I think that daughter of ours has really come out of her shell." I realised turtles weren't the only ones who could swim when things got rough. We're a soft and squishy lot, all right, so why pretend to be all tough? Emotions are a funny thing. You just have to learn to ride the waves. Believe it or not, it can be quite fun, even surprisingly exciting some days. Now, when I feel those currents lapping at my toes, I think of summer and the fun of the beach, and I'm beginning to think it shows.